Welcome to my house. In one of my sections, we talked a lot about oats. People got kind of excited about the possibility of adding oats to their diet. They're very inexpensive, and I'll put some prices up along with this link. But I wanted to kind of show you a little bit about what rolled oats or whole grains look like. And when you cook them on the stove, which I'm not going to do in this demo, they cook pretty fast. 10 minutes is not that long. You don't need to watch them every second. And of course you really swell up and you can see all that soluble fiber that you're eating. But today I wanted to show you quickly how I make granola to put in my yogurt each morning. We've talked a lot about yogurt and how it's a good source of probiotics. So here's my granola recipe, and you'll see that I don't usually quite follow measurements. I just pour a bunch of oats in my bowl, and you'll see here maybe it's about 2 cups, a cup and a half, 2 cups of plain oats. And you could eat them totally raw, but I don't prefer them that way. I actually prefer them cooked. So in that sense, I like to add a little oil to them. I like to use canola oil because you can use it at high heat. I use one that happens to be organic. And another oil that might be good would be avocado oil. I would prefer not using olive oil, mostly because I want to bake this at a little bit higher temperature than I normally would cook with olive oil. And in addition, the olive oil might give it an off flavor that doesn't quite go with yogurt, whereas canola oil is a little more taste-free. So I'm going to pour it over my oats, and I didn't measure, but if you were to measure, it would probably be about 1 to 2 tablespoons. And then I stir it so that it's coated all of the oats. And sometimes after I stir, I kind of look, if they seem like they're a little too wet, I can always add a little bit more oats to my bowl. They should be coated, but not too oily. You can experiment on your own to see exactly the perfect ratio that you like. And then to my oats, to make them tasty, I like to add some vanilla extract. And I'm going to use the teaspoon for this right over. And I'm going to actually add like 1.5. Again, it's not a precise measurement. I also like to add cinnamon because I think cinnamon makes a nice yummy taste to my oats in the morning. I sprinkle some over. And sometimes I like to add salt. Again, it kind of depends on what you're going to do with this. Just 1 or 2 little bits of salt I think is pretty tasty, especially if I'm going to add nuts to the mixture that don't have salt. If I'm going to add pre-salted nuts, then I probably wouldn't add the salt to my mixture. So I mix around, let it sit for a minute, and then I'm going to bake it on a baking tray. I use pre-cut parchment paper so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. You could also not use anything, that would be okay. It's just that sometimes it gets stuck to the bottom of the pan. This makes it nice and easy. And actually the parchment paper is pretty inexpensive, and it's also good for the environment. So once I feel like I've kind of mixed the oats and they look good, I spread them out on my baking sheet. So they're nice and thin. And then they each kind of get a little bit baked. If you put too many piled high and not spread out enough, then they're gonna sometimes clump together. That also is kind of tasty, but you don't have to do it that way. Now, if you looked up a granola recipe online, you'd probably find one that has sugar in it, which I don't add. But if you wanted to, you could add just a teeny bit of sugar in the form of maple syrup, 100% maple syrup, or maybe a little bit of honey would be another thing. It's just that you're gonna get granola that's a little bit more clumpy. If I wanted to add nuts to this mixture, raw walnuts I would add at this time. Otherwise, sometimes I add nuts later that have been already cooked. These are pecans. I also like to kind of mix it up, so I'm using different kind of nuts, adding different nuts into my diet at different times. Sometimes people would like to add dried cranberries. You can add them now before you bake or after you bake. You get to decide. And then I've preheated my oven, and I just put it in the oven for about 10 minutes. If I'm gonna have nuts, sometimes they'll burn if you let them go beyond 10 minutes. But there's no required time, since it doesn't have to be cooked, for it to be in the oven. Thanks for coming to my house, and I hope you found a new topping for your yogurt in the morning.